In this episode of the How to Do Your 20s podcast, I'm here with Neely, and we're going to be talking about the paleo, the primal diet. We're going to be talking about climbing, and a lot of the people listening to this probably know I love talking about entrepreneurships. And Neely's got a lot of stuff going on. She's written books. She also does coaching, has courses, all this kind of fun stuff. So I'm gonna let her take over. But first off, Neely, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Travis. I appreciate it.
So let's start off with your story. How did you get down this road, both from the nutrition perspective and climbing? How did you get into both of those?
Uh, yeah, those are both like two pretty big parts of my life. So for climbing, I don't know. I always wanted to climb. As a kid, I always was drawn to it, but I didn't actually start climbing until I was 19. And I moved to Sequoia National Park for a little bit and met a guy there, and we started climbing together. And I just haven't stopped. I'm like pretty obsessed with it, honestly. And I'm 38 now, so I've been doing it for about 19 years. And about the same time, I started feeling pretty crappy, like my health wasn't so great. And so eventually, in my early 20s, I started doing some research on nutrition and how it affects your body. And that's really helped me a lot. And my health has been pretty turned around by food. And so I went to school for that, got a certificate in nutrition. And yeah, the story goes from there.
Awesome, and I'm gonna ask you a lot more questions about it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Let's start off with if you don't mind, we'll start off with like talking about diet, and then we can also talk more in depth on climbing. So I guess my big question is why paleo? First off, what's the difference between paleo and primal, and
Yeah.
why those diets? I guess.
Yeah, that's a good question. They're pretty similar. Like strict paleo is no dairy is one of the big differences, and Lauren Cordain was one of the founding fathers, whatever, of paleo, and he would say like lean meats only and kind of lower fat. Whereas Mark Sisson is kind of the father of primal, and he's all about dairy if you can tolerate it and full fat dairy, and he doesn't care about lean meats, and neither do I. So that's basically a difference.
And I mean, why those diets? I personally do follow more of, I guess, a primal style diet.
Mhm.
But every once in a while, I will have like some Ezekiel bread or something like that. What is the problem with grains or potentially dairy?
Well, everybody's different. I'll start with that.
Okay.
And some people can tolerate that kind of stuff, and some people can't. And so it really just depends on like your level of inflammation, your level of leaky gut. To that's a term that a lot of people understand. And if you're sicker, the sicker you are, usually the less you can tolerate those things. But like the Ezekiel bread, with it being sprouted, it's much easier to deal with for your digestive system. But yeah, I don't remember exactly what your question was, but that's yeah.
Just basically that. And then, so you said you had some health issues, and was it just changing your diet pretty much fixed all those, or what was that process like?
Yeah, it was a slow process. So I I had a lot of digestive issues, and I had like asthma. I had heinous joint issues. I had headaches all the time. I was overweight. I just I didn't feel good. And slowly but surely through nutrition school and through my own reading, I started like taking out gluten, and then I would feel a little bit better, and I lost a little bit of weight. And then I took out dairy, and I felt a little bit better, and I lost, a little bit more weight. And then eventually through food sensitivity tests and everything, I just figured out that I can't tolerate any grains or any dairy or really any legumes. And I thought that I was like this, poor me. It was awful because it's like a big part of people's diets. And then I realized that there was this whole community of people who were doing this, the paleo community and the primal community. And it was something that I had learned about in nutrition school, but I had like written it off as impossible and dumb. But so yeah, that's how I came about it. It wasn't like I saw this diet and I thought dogmatically that this is what everybody should be doing. It was just something that came to me over time. And then I started doing that with my nutrition clients. And instead of doing food sensitivity tests, it ended up that if I just had my sick people do paleo, they got better. And so it was pretty miraculous in that way. And I really got on board with it.
So that's actually the next question I was going to ask you is if someone comes to you and let's say they hire you to work with you for nutrition, what are some of the common things, some of the common problems you see people making, and is it just switch to paleo and it all kind of fixes, or is there get more in depth than that?
Yeah, well, so I've kind of worked with a lot of different kinds of people, and the like I said, the sicker you are, the less tolerant you are of these like highly toxic foods. And by toxic, I just mean that there are things in them that are inflammatory and they're hard to digest, like the dairy and the grains and the legumes. And so when people come to me, if they're super sick and they have like autoimmune diseases and they have thyroid problems and their energy is super low and they have digestive issues, then I'm like, yes, I think we should try paleo. And let's cut it like, and it really depends on the person how quickly I want them to cut these things out because some people can go cold turkey and some people can't. And then on the other hand, recently I've been working more with rock climbers, and these people are generally really healthy. They just want to lose a little bit of weight, they want to have a little bit better energy and recover better. And so for them, most of my climbers aren't on paleo, and I would honestly not ever suggest it to them because it's such a lifestyle switch. And for some people, they just don't need it, not at this point in their lives. So it really depends.
I'm not in the climbing community, but I would have thought a lot of climbers are paleo just because of the kind of natural. So do they? What kind of stuff do they eat that's not paleo? They eat the gluten. They eat all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff,
they
or
eat typical American diets. I mean, yeah, pretty
slightly
standard.
slightly healthier, but still typical American diets, or
Yeah, some of them are slightly healthier. I don't really know exactly what that means, but yeah, they eat more vegetables and fruits and they try to, they think about it. They're just honestly, most of what their issue is that they don't eat enough protein and they don't even eat enough fat and they're eating too many carbs for what we do as athletes. And some of them have sensitivities, so I'll take the gluten out. Sometimes I'll take the dairy out. And usually they feel much better.
so in school, I know you studied, I think it was psychology and zoology,
Yeah.
and you have a little bit of. I was looking at one of your cookbooks, and it was talking about the Maasai and the I don't know how to pronounce it, Kitavans, and like those different things. So from I guess my question is from studying. Did you do a lot of in-depth studying of like the Maasai tribes and like the kind of foods that they eat, or
Not in college. That research was done more in nutrition school, which was after college, and then on my own, just like reading all of the research papers that are out there on them. I just find it really fascinating. As a zoology and psychology major, I was an animal behavior major, but I also did a lot of anthropology, and I just find it super fascinating. So, yeah, the Maasai and the Katavans are like two major groups that have been studied a lot.
and
So
I knew I was going to pronounce it wrong. So their diets, because I'm always surprised when I see, like, once again, I know about like the paleo and the primal diet, but then you see sometimes what people actually eat surprises you. What does I'm going to pronounce it wrong again? Masai and the Kitavans, like diets, what do they consist of usually?
well, the Maasai, they mostly, and this is the traditional Maasai. A lot of them have been innovated, or in, I don't know the word. They have more corn and sugar and stuff in their diet now, but it used to be like beef and honey and a couple of root vegetables, and then for certain reasons, like for the warriors, they would drink the blood of their cows, and they wouldn't kill them. They just like stick a thing in their necks and like bleed them, and they're fine. But anyway, so that's what they eat, and then the Kitavans mostly eat like pretty high carb, and so they eat a lot of actually tapioca, and so which is a root vegetable and other root vegetables, and then they eat some fish and a little bit of pork, um, and some coconut. So it's really, really different. And that's when when I figured these things out that there are these people all over the world that eat like some of them eat a ton of carbs, some of them eat a ton of fat, and they're all good. Like they're all healthy. And I was like, okay, well, this dogmatic paleo diet that says that I should only be eating such and such amount of carbs and such amount of fat and protein, it's wrong. Like we're all really different and adaptable. So
What does your daily like breakfast, lunch, dinner usually look like? Let's say on the more optimal side, obviously all of us skew, mess up every once in a while, but on an optimal side, what are you having?
yeah, that's one thing. I don't ever. I almost never in quotes mess up because I don't really like being uncomfortable, and when I eat something that doesn't agree with me, I just don't like it.
Right.
And so my diet's it's pretty much the same all the time. So for breakfast we make tapioca crepes out of tapioca flour and sweet potatoes and eggs. And with that I'll have eggs and bacon, and then in the afternoon I have mackerel salad, which means like mackerel, canned mackerel, and some veggies, and primal mayo, which is made out of avocado oil, and some berries. And then at night, we just have like some meat and veggie dish of some kind. And that's basically it. It's really, it's really boring, but it works really well for me.
I'm somewhat similar. I eat pretty much the same things all the time. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot recently is trying to get more rotation in. Do you pretty much eat the mackerel, for instance, the mackerel salad every day, or is it different kinds of fish depending, or?
Yeah, it's pretty much mackerel. And I just switched from sardines to mackerel just because I like the flavor more. But because they have so many omega-3s in them, it means that like I don't need to take a capsule, which I think is gross for fish oil. Like it has enough in it for me, and it has enough protein, and the fat is really satiating. So yeah,
And
I
do you get it out of a can or buy it?
yeah,
Okay.
yep. Let's just get it out of a can.
Yeah,
Which some paleo primal people would be like, oh, there's stuff in that can, and I'm just like, you cut your losses. You do what you got to do.
No, absolutely. I want to talk also about launching a book, because that's something I've actually been very interested in myself, and I know a lot of the listeners of the show have been interested in for a while. So, what was the first book that you launched, and take us through that process a little bit?
Yeah, so as a kid, even I've always been sort of a writer. Like I love writing, and I've always wanted to write a book, and I knew that getting in with an agent and a publisher was really difficult. I had looked into it before, and this I wrote the Complete Idiot's Guide to Eating Paleo, and the way that happened was I started working for a company called paleoplan.com, and we sold meal plans on a subscription plan, and I was like the resident nutritionist slash marketer, blah blah blah. And I was writing all these blog posts, and this agent actually found us. She was looking for somebody to write something on paleo for the Idiot's Guide series, and she contacted me and was like, "Would you want to do this?" And I said, "Heck yes." So that's how that happened. And I think that a lot of publishers now are doing that. They're finding people who can write online. And so that was one thing, that really benefited me from having a blog. Um, so yeah, that's how that happened. And then that was it wasn't as lucrative as I thought it might be. You get about a 10% cut on those books when you do it with a traditional publisher. And so I would probably never do that again unless I got a really big advance. But after that, my partner at Paleo Plan, Jason Glaspie, and we realized that like ebooks were actually the way to go, because when you sell ebooks, you take 100% of the profit basically.
Right.
And so we wrote this ebook on basically a beginner's guide to paleo with a meal plan in it too. And, we sold it for like $39 on the site. It's still being sold for that. And we got editors to help us, but other than that, it was 100% profit.
So, with that, how'd you? I mean, I guess you already probably had a following, but how'd you promote that book? Because yeah, I know a lot of people that write books and they end up never selling a copy other than to their mom. So, what was your strategy there?
For the paper book or for the ebook?
Let's go with the ebook. I assume the paper book. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming the paper book. The publisher kind of helped you with
Yeah.
sales. Okay.
We didn't do anything with that. There was no book tour or anything. And there are a lot of companies who do that, like other publishing houses, but we didn't do that. So that was just like out of my hands. And it was sold at Barnes and Noble and all the big booksellers. Or it still is. So the ebook, the thing with Paleo Plan is it already had a pretty good following when we started doing that. And that was because there were a ton of recipes on that site. And that's how a lot of paleo people get uh, following, is by putting recipes up. So we had recipes, we had my blog posts, and we had the meal plan. So we had, tens of thousands of people. One point, it was, uh, I can't even remember, maybe like 100,000 or more people per month looking at that site. And so that's how we advertise that. And he started that audience using AdWords, actually, just Google AdWords.
Really? Wow.
Yep. And then it became more organic traffic. But yeah, in that market, that seemed to work really well for him.
In this whole time, were you guys collecting emails, or did you just launch it on the blog and say, "Hey, here's the book"?
Yeah, yeah, collecting emails was always a priority for us. So we had, at that, when we first launched the book, I think we only had, 7,000 people on the email list, and then that grew and grew and grew. But yeah. And then I also have other ebooks on my other site, on my site that I run right now, which is trainingbeta.com. And so we sell training plans for rock climbers. And these are ebooks, and then we also have a couple subscription programs. And so the ebooks, again, like I partnered with a trainer, a climbing trainer, and he wrote the program. I hired a designer and an editor to help me with it. And then we just put it on the site, and we have a following because we have a daily blog. And then I have a podcast as well. And so that's how we get sales for that.
So let's talk about, you talked earlier a little bit about climbing and how you got into it. As someone that's never climbed before, if you were to, let's say you were to try to hook someone that hasn't climbed yet, any tips on how to get started with climbing? Because I haven't done it a lot, but I'm sure if I was introduced in the correct way, I'd be like, hey, this is a blast.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it depends. I definitely wouldn't just go outside and try to do it yourself. I would for sure go at least, well, I would go to a gym, to a climbing gym, and optimally, if you want to do ropes, I would take a course so that you do it right and you don't hurt yourself or anybody else. Or if you have friends who climb, I mean, they could take you out and either do rope climbing or bouldering. And so it's pretty easy to get into nowadays because there's gyms everywhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for people, I guess with your website, once again, being ignorant of the climbing world, what makes your training beta different from other climbing websites out there?
Well, there are a few well, there are a lot of climbing sites, but there are only a few of us who totally focus on training for climbing. So, like training, not training how to climb, but training to get stronger as a climber. Um, and so ours compares in that we have daily blog posts, and they're not all ours, they're not original content all the time. They're like we take the best articles from all of the publications out there and all the blogs out there, and collate them so that they're all in one place. And so yeah, that's where we focus. And then obviously the podcast, which I do weekly, approximately weekly. And yeah, so ours is a little bit different that nobody's really doing what we're doing. So it's kind of cool. We got in there pretty early.
It sounds like with a lot of the things you've been doing, you kind of got in there early. So out of college, did you ever have a typical job, or did you know right away that you wanted to start a blog? Like, how'd that path happen?
Oh, I didn't know that wanted or needed to start a blog until like like after I finished nutrition school. And then I hired this business coach, and she was like, "You need a blog." And I was like, "Why?" And she just said, "You just need a blog in order to survive in this world." And she was right. But no, when I got out of school, yes, I did have jobs for sure. And I've always hated 9 to 5s. I've always felt like I was in jail,
Yeah.
and I would get real depressed. For a while, I quit nutrition because I was trying to do it the traditional way where I would see clients face to face in Boulder, and I'm not super good at self promotion. And there's a ton of nutritionists in Boulder, so it was really hard for me to make it work. So I was like, I quit nutrition. I'm just going to get a corporate job so that I can be comfortable. And I did. I worked at a company that made wind turbines. And it was really cool because I got to feel that stability and like make enough money where I was like, okay, this is what I want. But then again, I felt like I was in jail every single day. I just felt awful. And so I knew that like I needed to figure out a way that I could have freedom so that I could not only have my own schedule, but so that I could travel. And so my husband and I ended up getting that job at Paleo Plan, and that was a remote job. And I worked about 20 to 30 hours a week, sometimes a lot more, but usually around 20 to 30. And we actually went and lived on the road and rock climbed for 3 years.
So with Paleo Plan, okay, so I was under the impression that maybe you co-founded it, but so that was how'd you get that job? Because that seems like a dream job.
It was. So I am a little bit strange in this way. I don't have any problem with like, and neither do you, obviously, like emailing and calling just cold people who I've never met. So what happened was I actually got laid off from that job at the wind turbine company. And I got on unemployment and I said to myself, I'm going to spend as long as it takes just researching online how people make money as nutritionists online. So I found a bunch of people who were making money and I wanted to work with them. I got turned down several times to be, partners with people. And then I saw Paleo Plan that was being run by Jason Glaspie, and I realized that he had no nutrition knowledge whatsoever. He was just a business guy. And so I emailed him, and he was across the country, and we just started working together. And he took me on as like a partner, not a partner, but I was profit sharing. So the harder I worked, the more I made. And so it was really motivating. But anyway, that's how I got that job. And it was awesome for about 3 years. And then I quit because I had started training beta while I was working there. Because while I loved the freedom and all that, I knew I wanted to be my own boss. Because even having a boss makes me feel like I'm in jail. So,
I,
so I'm a little bit of a control freak, but so that's how that happened.
No, I totally agree with everything you're saying. And this is the kind of stuff I love because a lot of times you see repeating patterns in people that start their own business and are successful. And the fact that you were willing to email the people or call the people is really, that's really cool to me. Do you remember what your email said? I don't know if, because I'm sure it
Uh,
was a while ago, but
yeah, I mean, to Jason, I think I just said, I'm a nutritionist and I would love to work with you. Um, and it probably wasn't super professional, but I don't remember. I do remember at one point being like, if you don't if you don't want to work with me, I want to let you know that I'm going to start a business like yours. So I don't know
okay.
if I didn't feel like there was like a threatening vibe to it, but that was my plan. I was like, well, what you're doing is working, so I'm just going to figure out how to do that on my own.
Okay. No, this is the kind of details that I really like because even for me, like sometimes I overthink sending an email out, and it's like sometimes it doesn't matter as much as you might think. Like just sending the email out, that person could be looking exactly for a person like you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was just like, I don't have anything to lose. I'm just sitting here on unemployment, sitting in front of my computer 14 hours a day. Whatever happens, happens.
So 3 years there, and then you started training beta. And how did you grow that? Because obviously, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking once you have a website, people just show up. As you well know, that's not the case.
Yeah. Facebook was huge for us. Climbers are big on Facebook and Instagram, and we're growing our Instagram audience. But Facebook, I did a lot of, I paid for ads to
Mm,
find climbers on Facebook and get them to like my page. And then that's why we do a daily blog so that we can put something up on Facebook every day and bring people back to the site, and give them really good information, but also sell our products to them. So it was Facebook, it was having the blog, and then after a while, it was the podcast. And the podcast has grown to a really good, well, a pretty good size, and that's super helpful.
yeah, no, absolutely. And when you first launched the site, did you know that you wanted to sell the books and the product, or was it more of a passion play for you?
Yeah, no, it was a business
Okay,
from day one.
business and passion definitely mixed though. It sounds like, which is
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly it. Like you want to spend your time doing what you love. And so climbing was obviously my other passion. And so any way that I could make a living in the climbing industry, I would have been happy with it.
So for a lot of people listening, I think your life, from what I can tell at least, is probably like their ideal life where you get to spend a lot of time doing what you love, and even when you're working, it's doing stuff that you love. At this point, what does a week in your life look like? I mean, how many hours are you if you don't mind sharing, actually
No, that's
working
fine.
versus like climbing and doing stuff for fun, I guess.
I mean, my life is pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. It's
Yeah.
like every day I'm like, I'm home. I could go climbing right now if I want to. Uh, I'm gonna take 10 days off and go to Kentucky and climb, which is what I did in the beginning of November. And then I was like, I want to take another 10 days off and go to Las Vegas and climb. And that's what I did a week later. And that's kind of how it goes. Like, if I don't want to work, I have an employee who does all of my social media for me and all of my blog posts. So I don't have any responsibility with that. I have to deal with like big things that come up and some support emails, but and I also am seeing clients now, which I wasn't before. I'm seeing nutrition clients now again. I had taken a break from that, and it's only climbers basically because they're really fun for me. And so I have to keep up with that, but I don't see that many clients. So basically, to answer your question, I on a typical week, I'll usually work about sometimes I'll work for 2 hours a day and sometimes I'll work for like eight. And so I probably work between 10 and 30 hours a week. And it's like pretty all over the place because I'll have appointments or I'll go climbing during the day or whatever. So it's a lot of time on the computer. And then sometime podcasting because I try to do one every week. But yeah, that's basically what it is.
So the obvious follow-up question is for everyone that's listening is like, holy crap, I wish I had that lifestyle. Let's say someone knows what their passion is and they already have that thought. What's the first step? Especially because it's changed since you started. I mean, the internet's a different beast. So if you were to give advice to someone that wants to get to where you are, what would the next step be for them?
Well, you have to find a niche. There's so many websites out there. And I think I got lucky, first of all. I think that a lot of people try to do it and they have a passion and they have a niche and they are really steadfast with like posting and everything and it just doesn't work. And for some reason, I don't know what the recipe was that got me here. So I don't know, I can give suggestions, but I don't know if it's going to work because I think that like I knew enough people in the climbing community to make a good base of like articles and podcasts and I had connections and that was really helpful. So I think that if you do have a passion and you do have connections within a community, that's going to really help for sure because you can get information from people and you know you can I don't know make it work that way. But I think the first step is to figure out what your passion is and ask yourself, am I good enough at this and do I know enough about this to like offer people something? And if I don't, do I know people who are? Because I'm not a trainer, I'm not a climbing trainer, but I knew a ton of trainers who I can work with and like collaborate with. And so that was important. Um, and I think that like using social media well and paying for ads and, putting high quality content out there is super important. And of course, collecting emails and giving people something, of quality in return for that email.
Absolutely. So one of the big things, I mean, you said right off the bat was you knew a lot of people in the industry. If let's say someone has a passion and they don't know a lot of people, how do you recommend they go about meeting those people? It sound my guess is that you've kind of met them organically through
Yeah.
climbing. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. And so I've met, and I live in like basically the heart of the climbing community in Boulder. This is where like a ton of pros live. So I guess if you have a passion, and I think that like Pat Flynn would be a good one to add because he Smart Passive Income, if
Yeah.
for anybody who doesn't know, he made that like food truck company, and he just liked food from food trucks.
Yeah.
So he had no expertise, but he just reached out to a lot of people, and that's what I would do. I would just not be afraid to cold call people, cold email people, meet with people in person, and just get enough information and figure out what people's pain points are. Like, what are people missing, and are they missing something? Because like, if I were to make a new company in the paleo world right now, in the nutrition world right now, which I tried to do, it's pretty hard because there's a lot of competition out there. There's like a ton of websites now. And like you said earlier, Paleo Plan was one of the first paleo sites, so it was easy to get in there with AdWords. But if you wanted to pay for AdWords now in the paleo world, it would cost you a fortune. So that's why I say, like, niche down, find a pretty small niche.
And how do you feel about if you were to start today a blog versus a podcast? Do you see better returns on the podcast than you do on the blog, or is it the blog still the way to go?
It's hard to say. It's like impossible to know, and I'm not doing a very good job with my metrics, but I think that both are important because while podcasts are popular and they're getting more popular, I think that there are still a lot of people like myself who like to read instead of listen. And so, like, for me, even if you were to have a podcast and just do transcripts for those podcasts, which is something that I do, because first of all, I understand that a lot of people don't like to listen, they want to read, but also because it gives your site more content, like valuable content, and all of your buzzwords are going to be on there. And so even if you did a podcast but had the transcript for everyone on there, I think that that would be really valuable.
That's a good idea. Had you who do you have that does your transcripts for you?
A
Because
couple
that's
climbers.
really. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's yeah. That's got to get pricey. I've thought about doing that and outsourcing it somewhere, but
No, it's not pricey at all. I probably
oh,
pay, I don't know, $200, $300 a month to have somebody do that for me for like 4 to 6 podcasts a month.
okay. Yeah,
So, I
that's not
mean,
too
I
bad.
pay him $15 an hour.
Yeah,
And so it's not like great money, but these climbers are living on the road. They just need to eat. So,
absolutely. Have you thought about YouTube at all? That's something that I've been very bullish on lately. It seems like YouTube's just growing and growing into this beast, and it seems like you might be an exception, but most people have a shorter and shorter attention span, and reading a blog article is not as enticing as watching a 5 minute YouTube video.
yeah, I have definitely thought about it. And one thing that we have on our site is like a portfolio of training videos. So we got an intern basically who worked for us for free as a videographer, and he took a bunch of video of us with a trainer doing exercises. And so that I think brings some traffic, but yeah, like doing little videos on how to train properly, how to do this and that, I think could for sure help our traffic, and we just haven't taken the time to do it yet.
I want to shift gears. Let's say someone's a little bit farther along in the process and they want to release a course. Let's go with a course rather than a book, but they want to release a course. Are most of your courses, they have, like, I assume, videos with them and like a whole plan, or how are most of your courses structured?
Well, okay, I actually have a lot of different things. And so with when you say course, the first thing that comes to mind is I did this, I've done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start with I did a summit one time. I think it was in 2014 or 13, 14, I think. And it was in a partnership with this website, paleohacks.com. And he had a summit where we had, I think, 40 people. I interviewed 40 people on women's weight loss. Okay. And then it was free. All those videos were put up for free over a 2 week period. And then if you wanted to buy the whole package, you could buy it, but you could watch it for 24 hours for free. Anyway, so that's sort of a bundle that I have sold. And after that, we did a follow-up course, and it was me teaching for 6 weeks, 2 times a week, and it was on women's weight loss. And so in that, I recorded myself on video, doing the with slideshows, and I also made the slideshows available on PDF, and I also did like notes and everything. And so that is now a course that people can still buy, and it's like $250 or something like that. And so that's one of the ways that we do courses. Does that answer that question? I have
Yeah.
others that I can talk about.
Yeah, I guess to follow up on that, if for someone that does have an audience and does have a little bit of a following, let's say they're trying to do a course, what mistakes, I guess, have you made that you would say, hey, watch out for X, Y, and Z things,
Um,
or any lessons learned?
Lessons learned on courses. Well, first of all, don't, don't overestimate how much you think it's going to make.
Mm,
Because again, people get lucky. Like there are all these guys out there who are like, make a course and you're going to make this guy made $150,000 in 2 weeks on his course, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sick. I'm totally going to do that. And that's
right.
what's going to happen to me. And then I made probably $6,000 on my course when it first came out, which is great.
Yeah.
But, we were planning on a lot more. So that was my first mistake. And I think having a really solid plan for how to launch it is really important. Like how to introduce it to your audience, how to sell it to your audience, how not to oversell it to your audience and annoy them. And I think that some of those guys, I'm blanking on his name right now. I wish I could. I think the guy who does like course cats or something. But anyway, there are a lot of guys out there who are really good at that. And I guess one thing is you just have to stay like really true to yourself and have integrity with people and not say things that aren't true and don't like be super, I don't know, just over the top with things because it's
Right.
annoying and people see through it.
And for you at this point, where do you see the future of this business going? Are you continuing to stay pretty much at the same pace? Do you plan on switching to YouTube, or what are the 2017 plans?
Well, with nutrition stuff, I plan to stay pretty much the same. I have like these products that I created a while back, and I still get revenue from them, and I'm kind of content with that. With seeing nutrition clients now, I want to continue doing it. I would love to do another live course because it's really fun. But in terms of training beta, I'm bringing on a new trainer so that we can do online training. And that's something that we were doing for a while. So I had a person who would see people online, one on one and give them individualized plans for their training. And so we're going to bring that back on. And then I have another training program. We have three that are being created right now. And those will come out. And then I want to find a way to partner with gyms more because I know that there is opportunity there, but I just don't know exactly how to do it yet with our current system. So my husband needs to remake our system. He's a programmer, and then everything will be better.
That sounds, yeah, it's great. So that sounds great. Plans for 2017. So I have one more question before we wrap up. This is a more general question, and it doesn't have to be about nutrition, climbing, entrepreneurship. But if you had general advice for the listeners that are, once again, like all in their 20s, any general advice that you wish you would have known when you were in your 20s?
Oh man.
It's a big
When I was
question,
in
I
my
know.
20s, I was so poor. I was poor. I was unhappy because I was working these crappy jobs. And I guess I wish I knew, number one, how much money I needed to make in order to be happy. I mean, that's how much money I wanted to make in order to be happy. Like, really priced things out and figured out, like, what do I want in my life? Do I want a house? Do I want to travel? Where do I want to live? Like, how much is this going to cost? And how much do I have to make that happen?
Mhm.
And if I had done that, I feel like my goals would have been different more quickly. Like I would have figured out, I would have hustled a little bit more. Um, and I think also being really honest with myself about like how I wanted my life to be. Like, how do you want the structure of your life to be? Do you want to sit in an office? Because some people do. My husband is totally okay with that and having a boss telling him what to do. But do you want that? Like, do you want to be able to sit at home all day, or is that actually going to be too lonely for you? Like, I would think about really what are your priorities and how do you want your life to look? And then research what other people are doing, like by listening to this podcast, for instance, and figure out how they're doing it and then do it. Like, just take the time and do it. Because like making training beta was hard work. It was really hard and it was scary. And we took a lot of risks and we spent some money on it, and it wasn't a for sure thing, but it was definitely the way that I wanted to live my life. So for to me, it's worth it. But I'm also a gambling type of person, so you know, you got to be
There,
honest with yourself.
yeah, there's a lot of great advice in there. I think a lot of things that I actually needed to hear and things that I still, and I'm sure most people listening to this still struggle with. So that was great.
Good.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Neely, where can people connect with you, find out more about you? Obviously, we mentioned a few things in the podcast already, but
Yeah, so the best way to find me nowadays is Training Beta. So it's trainingbeta.com. And like if you want to work with me with nutrition, you can find me there and all of my stuff is there. And that's pretty much it.
perfect. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, make sure you hit the big red subscribe button down below. You can also check me out on Facebook and on Twitter, and I release a new video every Monday, and by hitting that subscribe button, you'll get those new videos every Monday. And this is really a podcast. It's also a website. You can check out the website. It's howtodoyour20s.com. I'll put a link right over here as well. And what it's all about is trying to improve your life. And we specifically focus on things that people in their 20s are interested in. So make sure you like the video if you liked it, subscribe, like us on Facebook and Twitter, whatever. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again on another video.